Today I'm going to show you how to make a sourdough version of these Ukrainian herb and garlic bread rolls. They're soft, delicious, and they have amazing flavor. Here's how to make them. To start, add 300 grams of water to your mixing bowl, then add 10 grams of salt and 10 grams of sugar. The sugar will not only make the rolls a little bit sweeter, but it'll retain moisture and make the rolls a little bit softer and bouncier as well. After stirring your salt and sugar through the water, go ahead and add 400 grams of all-purpose flour or bread flour to the mixing bowl. Then just give it a mix before realizing you forgot the most important ingredient, your sourdough starter. Add 200 grams of active and bubbly sourdough starter to your mixing bowl. To get this amount of starter, I took 25 grams of cold starter out of my fridge last night, and I fed it 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour. Then about 10 hours later, the starter had doubled in size and it was ready to use. Go ahead and stir all of the ingredients together with a spoon until the dough looks something like this, and then you can start kneading the dough on the counter, or you can use a stand mixer like I'm going to be doing. Mix this on medium speed with the dough hook attachment for about 8 minutes. And same thing, if you're mixing by hand, go ahead and knead the dough on the counter for about 8 to 10 minutes until you get a nice smooth ball of dough. About 8 minutes later, my dough started to look ready, so I took it off the dough hook, and this is what it looked like. It was pretty well developed, but it was still kind of sticky, so I wanted to bring it together on the counter to make a tight, smooth ball of dough. So I put the dough on the counter, and I gave it a few slap and folds like this. I didn't use any flour on the counter, just my hands and the dough. Just picked up the dough, slapped it down, picked it up again, slapping it down, rotating it from side to side, slapping it down until all of the dough kind of holds together and it's not sticking to the counter. This just took about 1 to 2 minutes of slap and folds. To be even more precise, it took exactly 18 slap and folds, and I thought my dough was ready to go. So once your dough is holding together, go ahead and bring it together into a ball, or form it into a ball with a dough scraper like I'm doing here. Just go around it in a circle until it forms a smooth, tight ball. Then transfer the dough into an oiled glass bowl or dish where you can watch how much it grows during bulk fermentation. That's why I really do like using glass bowls with clear sides so you can watch how much your dough is growing. Cover up your dough with a lid or with a kitchen towel and let it bulk ferment on the counter for about 4 to 6 hours until it roughly doubles in size. About 4 hours later, this is what my dough looked like. Once your dough has grown to about 75 to 100% its original volume, your dough is good to go. You could shape the rolls right now, or you can move your dough to the cold fridge where you can let it live in there. Anywhere up to 24 hours should be fine. This cold fermentation will give the dough a little bit better flavor, and it gives you more flexibility because you don't have to make your rolls right away. You can make them whenever you want to. The next morning, I decided it was definitely time to turn this dough into some rolls because the dough was trying to bust out of the bowl. It was definitely growing inside of the fridge overnight. Then just carefully remove the dough from this bowl with your hands and move it onto a clean part of your counter. You don't need to dust the counter with any flour or anything at this point. And then carefully stretch out the dough into a square shape. Then divide the dough as evenly as you can into 6 equal pieces. You can use a bench knife like I'm using or a knife for this. When you divide the dough into 6 rolls, the rolls are going to turn out pretty big. If you want your rolls to be smaller, I would divide the dough into 8 pieces for medium-sized rolls or 12 pieces for even smaller rolls. Whatever the size of your dough, this is how you shape each roll. Flip the dough over and take each of those 3 corners and fold them under the roll. Then put the roll on the counter and keep rolling it with your hand like this, tucking each of the corners underneath the dough ball. Then you got a nice tight, smooth ball of dough. Do the same thing with each of the other rolls. Fold in each of the 3 corners underneath, then roll the dough on the counter until everything tucks underneath the roll. Once your rolls are shaped, go ahead and get a non-stick cake pan or a cake pan lined with some parchment paper. This parchment paper is obviously going to create a non-stick barrier on the bottom of the cake pan so the rolls can come out easier. You can arrange the rolls however you want in the pan, but for these larger rolls, I find it's best if I put one roll in the center and then I arrange all the other rolls around that center roll. This would definitely have been easier if I had floured the rolls beforehand. They are kind of sticking together in a way that makes it hard to arrange, so if you want, go ahead and sprinkle the rolls before you put them in the pan with just a little bit of that bread flour that you were using before. Also, right before you cover the rolls up, go ahead and sprinkle them with a little more flour. This will actually help keep the rolls from drying out while they are rising. Cover up the rolls with a kitchen towel and let them rise on the kitchen counter for about 3 to 5 hours until they're doubled in size. Here's what the rolls looked like after 1 hour, and here's what they looked like after 2 hours. You can see that they're growing, and here's what they looked like after 3 hours. They're about doubled in size and ready to bake. About 30 minutes before you're ready to bake, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then add a metal cake pan to the bottom rack of your oven. This will allow you to add steam to your oven later. Once your oven is ready to bake, go ahead and brush the tops of the rolls with an egg wash. This is just 1 beaten egg. Brushing the tops of the rolls with egg wash will give them a nice shiny brown finish. This is the same thing I did with my sourdough brioche recipe that I posted a few months ago. Once the rolls have all been washed with eggs, go ahead and transfer the rolls into the middle rack of your oven. Then pull out that bottom rack with the cake pan on it and pour in some boiling water into the cake pan. This is going to shoot some steam into the oven, which is going to help the rolls to rise up nice and tall before they form a crust on the outside. This will give you puffier and fluffier rolls. Bake for about 35 to 40 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. While you're baking your rolls, this is the perfect time to prepare the garlic, herb, and oil blend that you're going to put on top of the rolls. Go ahead and crush 3 cloves of garlic and mince those cloves finely with your knife. Then take a handful of fresh herbs. I'm using half parsley and half cilantro. Chop the herbs up finely as well, just like you did with the garlic cloves. Transfer the garlic and herbs into a small bowl and add 2 tablespoons of a neutral tasting oil like vegetable oil or sunflower oil. Then add 2 tablespoons of water and a sprinkle of salt, just about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Mix everything together thoroughly with a spoon or a fork. And now you've got your fresh herb and garlic blend that's going to top your rolls. This is going to bring a real punch of flavor, especially from the garlic. It makes for some really unique tasting rolls. About halfway through the bake time, go ahead, open up the oven and remove that steam tray. Let the rolls continue baking with no steam until the end of the baking time. When the rolls have finished baking, remove them from the oven and place them on a wire rack. And if your bread is sticking to the pan a little bit like mine is, go ahead and go around the pan with a metal knife and just remove the rolls from the pan. If you leave hot rolls in a pan like this, they end up getting steamy and soggy, so just put them directly on the rack themselves. Now this part is important. You want to spread your herb and garlic topping onto the rolls while they're still hot. The heat from the rolls isn't really going to cook the topping, but it's going to take off some of that raw edge from the garlic and herbs. The way I see it, the heat makes the topping become one with the rolls. So spread the garlic topping on top of the rolls and make sure it gets into all those nooks and crannies. Now ideally you'd want to wait at least an hour before eating these rolls. The flavors stand out a lot better once the rolls have cooled down, but I couldn't resist ripping into these right away. Traditionally, these garlic rolls are eaten with borscht or fish soup, but honestly, they'd go great with almost anything savory. These are so good. If you liked this sourdough recipe and you want to see other sourdough recipes and videos, check out these 2 videos right here.